This guy looks pretty peaceful.
We can really rest in peace in here.
Honey, hand me my book, please.
Hey, sorry. My husband can be a bit of a klutz. He doesn't mean to, but sometimes he makes enough noise to wake the dead.
Still beats the pan flute guy.
The gang's all here, they're on the case, and there's no ghost that they wouldn't face, 'cause they dig it, Scooby-Doo. Yeah, they dig it, Scooby-Doo.
Hey gang, and welcome to another episode of a podcast named Scooby-Doo Extra. This is actually kind of a special episode of the show in general, just because November 12th marks the first anniversary of me releasing an episode of the podcast, which is pretty cool. I actually was originally going to release a full APNSD episode on this date, but because of the logistics of my interview with Tom, which was released at the end of October, and having this commentary, I kind of thought, let's put out the extra episode on the anniversary, and I'll address it then. So, since I wasn't running any contest or doing anything weird or special, I figured this is enough of a recognition of a full year of podcasting, which, woo-woo, is pretty proud of that. Pretty thrilled with all the people that I've had a chance to converse with and the friendships that I've built through the show. It's been a really great experience. I'm looking forward to year 2. I've got a couple of ideas cooking in my head for year 2, so hopefully I can bring those things into effect and just, also continue with the really great content and interviews that I've been bringing to you for the last 365 days. Now, having recognized that milestone for the show, let's get on with this amazing new episode of a podcast named Scooby-Doo Extra. For anyone who doesn't know, the extra episodes are generally added value content episodes, kind of like your DVD extras or special features on your optical media or whatever. Just because, Warner Brothers hasn't really supported the shows, the DVD releases, or even the digital releases with any kind of cool extras. There's been a couple of minor little EPK things that have come out, but anything to do with the actual creation of the show or the history of the show, it's just not there. I felt that was, to paraphrase George C. Scott from Dr. Strangelove, I cannot allow a bonus features gap. So every time I interview one of the fantastic people who've worked on this franchise, I give them the opportunity to do a commentary on an episode that they've worked on, even an episode they haven't worked on, just anything that they wanted to talk about. A perfect example of that is my commentary in this episode. It is the return of the fun and frantic Tom Konkle, who was my first guest on the show and contributed the first commentary for the show, which was Area 51 Adjacent, which I believe was the 12th or 13th episode of Season 1. This time around, we're going to be doing the 6th episode of Season 2, Mysteries on the Disorient Express. Now, I know a lot of you may not have had the opportunity to see this episode. I know it's aired in Canada, I know it's aired in the UK, and probably a few other regions, so I'm sure some of you will have the opportunity to listen to this commentary with the actual episode. Obviously, if you haven't seen the episode, this commentary contains spoilers and is scene specific, so it might not be as fun, but maybe you're just a crazy fan and you want to hear it anyways, or you love the dulcet tones of mine or Tom's voices. So what you do in your own time is your own business. I do the podcasting, and after that, I'm hands off. So I'm really excited to be presenting this episode. It's a great commentary with Tom, and this episode just has such great writing and great jokes. Great direction by Ron Rubio. Great art direction. The monsters, the character designs are so great in this episode. Like, everything just looks so good. It's one of the best looking episodes of the series that I've seen so far. It's one of my favorite episodes of the series. I laughed my behind off. First time I saw it, I spent an inordinate amount of time editing this commentary together. For a 22-minute episode, I'm not even going to get into the number of hours that I had to fiddle with things. And throughout that entire time, I did not get sick of the episode. In fact, I could sit down and watch this episode again. It's so kooky and askew and entertaining, and I can't say enough good things about this show. So let's get to it, shall we? Take your optical media or your digital media, whatever media you happen to be watching this episode on. Make sure your counter, the episode counter, is at 0000. I'm going to get into the segment with me and Tom right away, and we're going to do the countdown in our segment. We're going to hit play on the episode, listen to the commentary. There's a little bit of a conversation after the commentary for, 5 or 10 minutes, where Tom and I just kind of wrap some stuff up. There's some fun little convo there, so stick with us after the commentary, and then I'll close out the show as per usual, and then we're done, and we're out of here. But right now, let's go to our APNSD Extra commentary segment with very special guest, Tom Konkle. See you on the other side.
Tango.
You're welcome.
So do you want to go into the episode?
Sure.
Are you feeling primed?
I think so. Let me pull that up here.
All right, so for anybody who's listening, sync up your players, digital media, whatever it is you're using, to
The 0.
counter.
Right? And it should be
We're gonna
total
count
running
down
time is 22:29 for those of you that are real geeks.
We're going to count down from 3, and when I say play, everybody hit play. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, play.
So first we see the train, which establishes place, and this episode was at first a sort of parody of Murder on the Orient Express, but that was merely a jumping off point. Love this cold open because everyone who's ever traveled has certainly been in this position where like, oh great, that's my seat. But I love how it escalates here. This sickness, don't want to catch the disease. But hippie with a pan flute. Yeah, there you go. No, we can't. John Goldenberry and I can be vicious sometimes, but sometimes it's dead on. The pan flute joke I'm incredibly proud of. I like how this very smoothly establishes that after the pan flute and the children, certainly this character is more appealing. So they have an encounter with this character who's kind of mysterious. Wake the dead, little punning going. There it is. Our reveal of our creature. Played straight and scary. And then we always like to do a little bit of a... It still beats the pan flute guy. It's one of my favorites. It turned out great. Thank you to John for everything there. Worked so beautifully. We go into our title sequence, and again, that opening established very quickly a place. There's a lot of people on that train, which is important because that kind of shorthand for mysteries on the Disorient Express is important. I don't like to do straight parody. I like to do tonal changes and kind of use it as a jumping off point. There's a wonderful written by credit I'm very proud of, and Ron. She sets up transport itself and the idea that they're going somewhere, they're traveling. But Fred makes the stated premise of the show, which is basically, be careful what you wish for because you might get it. And Fred wants a mystery. He's like, I only have a purpose when I have a mystery. Well, in this case, we decided to take it as far as we could. Daphne, I think this is one of her best Daphneisms, one of her best experiments, is that by removing one sense, she actually develops the other. You know, we've heard that sense is like the blind can smell so much better, but in her case, she's like, can you smell that vista? Can you do this? Everything is mixed up just a little bit and pays off beautifully. The other thing that you had to do is establish as a second runner in the show that Scooby and Shaggy are always the outsiders, and of course the important character here, who is the conductor, says, sorry, the pets have to go in another place. So poor Scooby. He's in a cage. His best friend is caged up. He's got to do something. And this is what starts the plot in motion. You always have to have a Macguffin. A Macguffin, of course, being like a Hitchcockian trick that you have that's the through line mystery, why people are after you. It's because they had to sneak Scooby in. They come up with a plan. Ooh, he's going to be disguised as his mother. Puts that nice little flower in the hat to make him very matronly. And suddenly we've got a great comic premise that can continue through it, because now they're pretending to be someone that they aren't, which is, again, a great theme in Scooby-Doo. Not only are the monsters people pretending to be people they aren't, but now even the characters themselves on the train. So you set the table as the train pulls out of the station. The table is set with all of the people that are going to be involved in a sort of classic Agatha Christie-style mystery. Listen to that view, too. That just works so well. And Velma, of course, still doing research on trains. Fred lamenting again and stating that he wants to go on the trip, but, it would be nice to have some mysteries to give him purpose. And that's our first trigger. He's so excited to have the Grim Reaper. It's funny, there's a whole story with me and the Grim Reaper. I used to do the show called Ask Grim, where I played the Grim Reaper with a chat show, a talk show. And I was always doing Reaper-type jokes. I think it's still online, Ask Grim. And that was the perfect thing to be like, okay, that's going to be what it is. You're going after the Grim Reaper. And then the thing, John Colton-Berry asked for a ride one time to go back to his house. And we were driving from the Warner's lot, and we started laughing. There was a character that I had come up with called Dr. Mesmer, who was on Invention with Brian Forbes. He's this British character. And we thought, this is a perfect device. It will pay off a little later in the episode, but it's a perfect device as to why the train can't be stopped once the mystery gets going. Now, Fred, his total jam, he's so cool, is that he wants a mystery. He's been provided with a mystery, and now we start escalating it. And I think what's important in comedy, of course, is tone, but also it's like a mathematical puzzle. You can look at it, and it starts escalating. We always have these sort of little, call them haircut scenes, where it's, Scooby and Shaggy getting themselves in trouble, but ultimately that puts them in a place where they're either going to encounter the monster or get some piece of information that the audience needs. But that's the most classic sort of Abbott and Costello, Laurel and Hardy, Marx Brothers type moment, and we always had fun doing that. Like that, John and I relished writing that. One of the things I loved about being a staff writer on it was, by being in the office, we could pollinate each other's ideas, we could make each other laugh, and if it made us laugh, oh no, it's another monster, this time it's a mummy. Now, this is breaking with tradition, because normally once you've established the monster, well, that's the mystery and the one you want. But since it's not the Orient Express, it's the Disorient Express, well named because we've taken the trope of the monster, and now there's two monsters, two very different monsters on the same train. This will geometrically escalate with each mystery. That becomes a runner. To me, that's what kind of makes it all worth it when you're deep into a show that's been on and as successful as Scooby has been. If you can still surprise and do some fun stuff with it, in this case it's for comedy, in some other case, it could be like, oh, I've never seen a mystery done that way or whatever. That's what they're recolliding and now explaining there's a mummy. He's like, no, you don't understand. We've already got a mystery. It's like their credibility starts going like, no, we don't have more than one mystery here. And this is now taking Fred into he asked for a mystery. We're giving him plenty of mysteries. But this show's about the comedic potential of it. And for me, I'm really proud of that because, when John and I set out to do something, it was, how can we put our own voice in it? And how do you surprise? And Daphne, again, always seeing the world in a different way, and I love that she'll take one sense and take it away, and it amplifies her other senses in the completely wrong way. So now he's so entrenched in his, well, this is how the Scooby-Doo mysteries work. It's almost a meta comment on the show. They find legitimate evidence, and she gives her background, as Velma does. 2 mysteries. The minute he says that, off camera, it's now mathematically working. I mean, one of my favorite shows is Fawlty Towers, and it works like a graph, like a chart. You can escalate things. Now there's a third creature. It's Tengu! Yes, I'm guilty of Tengu, and Tengu, you're welcome, which made me laugh. Sitting at my house at my computer at 2 in the morning, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it in there, and we're not going to put it in there once. We're going to put it in there, let's put it in 12 times, because by 7 times you'll be like, okay, I'm tired of it. It's a stupid, silly joke. But by the 12th time, you're laughing again because you're like, seriously? You went around the park? You went there to do that? Tengu, great design. And again, what's kind of fun about it is each encounter is its own unique, different mystery, all piling on top of each other. And I got to come up with ridiculous characters and names, some of them real. Here's another haircut scene where all of a sudden you're in a Marx Brothers. Love this scene. This was written in maybe a day or two where I just wanted to get in classical mode. I was like, okay, Abbott and Costello, Marx Brother mode. They always take someone, put them in a situation, and then escalate it. And the minute he's immobilized and they become authority figures, you're welcome. It's just perfect. It's old school. You could see this working with the Three Stooges, frankly. And really happy with it. The actors performed this episode really well. I mean, you can always tweak things even more with timing, but it worked beautifully. And it gets physical. They're beating up this poor creature who may or may not have a human underneath there. But Tengu, you're welcome. Wipe out. And he's going after them again. Now, I wanted some genuine mystery in here, and this is something that John helped me shape as well, which is what is going on that these monsters are there. And we had this idea early on and wanted an elegant way to work it in. So, as with any Agatha Christie mystery, there's always redirects as to who could be the suspect, or everyone has a sort of motive. This is Dr. Mesmer, who's based on Sir Reginald Beauhainaut, a character that I play as British scientist in Invention with Brian Forbes, and the nostril thing. We were driving in the car and came up with the nostril transplant idea. And the idea was, it's a mononostril. It's just the one, you know, and it has to be fed oxygen to keep it alive. And there it is. And the fact is, animation allows you to take an idea that absurd and take it to its illogical conclusion, as I like to think of it. One of my favorite writing styles in sketch and in comedy is taking some absurd idea like that and making it so silly that it's smart. It's silly humor for very smart people, because I find that incredibly funny. If you don't feel like you're being talked down to, even when it's the silliest of ideas. I love the idea of the nostril transplant, and I'm so glad that it got in. It's a tribute to the show that those kind of ideas got through, and certainly to the writing that we were able to explore those ideas. I love it. We had talked about me playing him because he is such a lift from the type of humor that I do in Invention with Brian Forbes. Here we go. Got our mystery developing with the passenger manifest. And people snuck onto the train. So we've got our plot point there. And what? See, Terax, the mythical creature of French legend, of course she knows that immediately upon seeing him. That's a given. It's still following an act structure, even though it feels anarchic. And for me, that's what made the show great, is it keeps you off kilter, like anarchic literally, visually, where they're running. And then we have this wonderful chase to get some kinetics in it. But they're running into different monsters, which I love the idea of deconstructing the typical Scooby trope or structure by having all these different ones populate it, because it isn't just a joke for no reason. It actually plays into the multi-character structure of Murder on the Orient Express, this being the Disorient Express with mysteries, having all these different players at the table and all the various exotic designs is the joke that we wanted, which was the original pitch, was what if he had more mysteries than he could handle? Like, I want to put as many mysteries in one thing as possible. like an overwhelming amount of them. Not 6 mysteries, but 7. And just the lion with the claw. Just it allows the animators, too, to just kind of go crazy and come up with fun looks all in one episode. And again, you get these wonderful kinetics of you're on a moving train, you can't leave, you've got all the characters, in life or death situations, but you've got, now a train covered in 8 mysteries, and they're getting increasingly absurd, which made me laugh. I got to do what I call my Encyclopedia Humor, which is you go in and just start creating Hemogoblin, the Blood Goblin, Hemogoblin, and the animators create that. And that's the beauty of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, is that you had a structure you could kind of identify, but then you could take classic mysteries and use them as a launching pad without being obvious. Now, this is a very important turn in the story. Their credibility, which normally is, unassailable, they're in big trouble this time. He pulls the hat off, and they now are in jeopardy, literally trapped on the plane and on the train and unable to help solve the monster mystery. They are identified as the monster by the conductor. The conductor seems like a very reasonable guy, and he's saying, you guys need to stay here. Now they're demanding that the train will stop, and every time Dr. Mesmer comes in and says, you can't do that. Yeah, you'll set science back 7 to 8 days. Good Lord, especially nostril science or any of the inhaling sciences. It's lines like that. It's character-driven stuff that I love. And the hat goes into the case. And anything that's ever important that will pay off is somewhat marqueed in it. If you're watching carefully, again, like a flowchart, it's all laid out for you. Retroactively, it should make sense. What my favorite style of anarchic writing is that while you're watching it, it should feel like, I don't know where this is going. Like, it's gone from puns to now we're talking about the most absurd Hemogoblin and Dr. Mesmer and all the other characters. All of that, for me, works best because humor's supposed to surprise you. If you ever feel like you know what's coming, it better be that you did the joke because you want the audience to know it's coming, like the Tengu You're Welcome joke. And then how do you push that in some new way, either through repetition or situation? It can become funny again if you do it right and you perform it right. And that's what I love about this show. The vibrating paper now. And see, now her absurd experiment where she would, deny her vision to be able to smell vistas or plug her ears to see things, now pays off with going after the paper. And you have this wonderful little physical bit where they're in the dog cages that Scooby was originally forced to be in at the beginning, pay off by him going to get a paper that will help us solve our mystery. And I like how this is pushed. Verbal comedy is fantastic. Physical comedy can be mixed in, especially in animation, if done well. See? It's not unrelated. It's all one big mystery. And now we move into the sort of final act of the show, which is where pieces are put together and they make a realization. All of these creatures on the train are after one thing. They're not disparate individual mysteries, but they're all one mystery. And one of the reasons we wanted to do that is I was thinking, well, at the end, you have to have the gang solve this mystery in some sort of plausible way, and we don't have time within this 22-minute structure to resolve each thing. So it's best to have it coalesce around something. And then in an elegant way, it coalesces around something that was set up at the very beginning. Everything happens absurdly, but then for a very practical reason. Oh, Scooby's in a mom outfit with the hat. And I love this kind of quiet, pensive moment with the monsters where they're like, wait a minute. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Ah. And now they're trying to escape from them. And one thing that we're trying to pay off, and I think is one of the hardest things to do, is once you've created a menagerie of absurd ideas, absurd characters, all grounded in their own reality, you still have to have some sort of structure to the story. And in this case, the gang needs to actively be part of stopping the monsters. But now you've got all these different monsters. So we ended up with the kinetics of being up on the train, all of them lined up against all of them in this sort of epic standoff. And then you've got the classic, because they're on a train and it's moving, that's not a metaphor. Boom, into the coal car they go, all at one thing. It's very simple, but it's a great way to kind of resolve it all at once. They're all stuck. And thank goodness the whole Nostril Transplant got there on time. And he's going to get to the patient on time. Then you have the conductor, who seemed reasonable throughout, but is intrinsic to the plot. He's actually Agent Conductor. I always love that names are your actual job. He's like, Professor Scientist. My parents gave me a lot of pressure by naming me that. But then the idea was sort of like the Oktoberfest scene in the Pink Panther, where all the assassins are descending. Dreyfus, his boss, had said that he wanted to kill Inspector Clouseau, so every country sent a person to assassinate him. That idea sort of made sense here, where everyone came from different places, and each one is an agent from another place, so they would use their culture, their mythology and their monster to become what they are. So there was a hint in there the whole time. It wasn't just, oh, Tengu's a funny name or this or that. We actually had thought about it and gave it some resonance to the story. It actually pays it off. And then the chip being something that everyone wanted, well, it puts the gang front and center, that in order to sneak Scooby on, he becomes the mom and he puts the chip on him. So I'm really proud of that, because this is in retrospect, you look at it and it's mathematically, it perfectly maps out, things happen for reasons, but while you're watching it, it's this anarchic, hopefully very funny, silly exercise. And that's what Be Cool Scooby-Doo always does best, is it's a love of Scooby, it's the structure of Scooby, but it has unique voices, like Zach's and John's and mine, taking it and giving it its own voice. It shows how malleable and how classic the structure of Be Cool Scooby-Doo is, because you can do some show where it's a straight mystery, you could do some show where it's this, and they all work. And I'm really proud of the show. That is one of my favorite episodes. And thank you for letting me talk about it, and even more, thank you for... I have some friends of mine did voices on that. How funny. Just a great opportunity to write what you find funny. And that episode is one that I would point to as one that I'm proud of. How I wrote it, how it got executed, and how everyone made it better with all their contributions. That is Mysteries on the Disorient Express.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Was that all right?
Yeah, it was great. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Almost as good as Area 51.
Almost as good. Oh, man, every time you said Tengu, it was so hard not to laugh.
And one of the things...
And then when they get to the nostril, it's...
The nostril I love. If it had continued, there would have been more fun stuff like that on top of it, and you would have had a Scooby mystery that was constructed in that way, sort of, you know where I was going with that Scrooge thing that I read you. It's sort of that meta feeling to it, but it's smart and it's satirical and absurd. It's just, that's the kind of stuff I love, and I think we could have had a lot of fun with that. And it's not out of character, and it's not out of the structure of the show, because Scooby and Shaggy frequently ran back to Fred or Velma or to Daphne with, hey, we just saw somebody. They're like, oh, no. But in this case, they're right. They're seeing a second mystery, but that doesn't fit with the structure of the show. So they're like, there can't be a second mystery. You guys are, and normally it's them going, we saw a ghost. It's, hey, you didn't see a ghost. It's like, this time it's like, no, we've got the Grim Reaper. You saw a mummy. That's fine. The mummy's fine. And the idea that, wait a minute, if you take a look at that sentence, it's like, you said you just saw a mummy and I dismissed it because we've already got death.
I think that's why the episode works, though. Like I mentioned before, how you never get to really get your equilibrium, because it has all of the formulaic Scooby-Doo stuff in it.
Yeah.
It is a structured show. It does have You know, it's got a romp.
Yeah.
It's got the scene with Tengu where they have him in the chair. Like, it has all those things, but
Yeah.
what you expect to happen after those things happen doesn't happen the way it traditionally happens. So
And that's
you're
what's
kind of
fun.
bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, that to me, that's what kind of makes it all worth it. When you're deep into a show that's been on and as successful as Scooby has been, if you can still surprise and do some fun stuff with it. In this case, it's for comedy. In some other case, you know, it could be like, oh, I've never seen a mystery done that way or whatever. But this show's about the comedic potential of it. And for me, I'm really proud of that because, you know, when John and I set out to do something, it was how can we put our own voice in it and how do you surprise? Like, it's written for guys like you who the most gratifying thing you say to me is when you're like, I didn't know where it was going, but I enjoyed the fact that you know, I was off kilter and I'm watching something that I've watched so much of, and yet I'm discovering new chestnuts. There's new stuff that I was like, I actually laughed, you know, and that's why I do it. That's why I spend hours and hours writing it, is that one day you get that payback of the laughter is the payment, you know. It's like hearing you laugh. I'm like, all right, that was worth the 2 a.m. rewrite, you know, because why else? It's too much work to not enjoy it.
I remember after I saw the episode, it was probably like 2 a.m. because I remember watching this when it was late. And I just, like I said, I laughed myself silly through the whole thing. And afterwards, I got on Twitter and I sent you a DM and I was like, Tom, just want you to know I saw the episode. It was really great. I laughed really hard. And Tengu.
And Tengu, yeah. That just made me smile. I love it. And again, that's why you do it. You know, that to me, you saying that was worth it. I read your thing from that, and that's the beautiful thing about the internet. It's like you put stuff out there, and you don't know where it lands or whatever, but you wrote back, you're like, I loved that, and I was like, you know what, I kind of love that too. So
now, see, you have that thing. You have that thing where if you're ever having that creative existential crisis, you can always go back and be like, no, I know I'm not a complete hack because I got this right.
That's right. Well, yeah, I remember one time I was working on something with Michael Palin, and he goes, do what you think is funny. If no one agrees with you, get out of the business. I'm like, oh, that's actually a very good quote. So, yeah, I completely am proud of this episode. There's a couple that I wrote in season 2 that I was really proud of, and there's some, as I gave you a sneak listen to my dramatic reading, there's some that had incredible potential, and they did a decent job with it, but I would love to have still worked there to really work on the episode some more. Does that make sense?
Yes. You wrote Disorient Express, you wrote Scooby-Doo. Are there more?
There's a hotel one, which I don't know if we could talk about yet, because I don't think it's aired.
Oh, you did...
Has it aired?
I don't think it has aired. Do Not Disturb, that was you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's aired yet, so...
Yeah, I enjoyed that one, too. I like the twist.
Oh, has it aired?
Well, all of the episodes have aired somewhere in the world.
Now, that's really the dream. Young Tom, when he dreamed of working in television, to have someone go, you know, trust me, some of your episodes have aired somewhere in the world. There's one Indonesian boy, did he loved that episode. Boy.
You're huge in Belgium.
That's right, huge in Belgium. Yeah. Hey, did it air last night? Was I on Carson? Yeah. No, it just, none of that, I don't know. That just seems wonderful. Well, it's my absurd life, and that's my point of view, so... Hopefully someone else...
It kind of fits the absurdity of the show.
Yes, it fits the absurdity. I would love to do another... I've been dropping hints and large bags of cash at John's door going, hey, what are you working on? I would love to do another show, honestly. I mean, just shamelessly about it. I loved being in a writing room with him, and being a staff writer actually suited me quite well. So I hope that the opportunity presents itself. I'm looking for a literary agent based on writing that I've done, some of which I just read you. And with Trouble Is My Business, the film noir script I co-wrote with Brittany Powell, I'm hoping that some doors open, and I think with some good literary representation that opportunities will come to me that I'm unaware of.
Well, if it's any consolation, just judging by the response that we see online and talking amongst ourselves in the community and just some of the random stuff that flies out there on Twitter, like, I think this show is going to be one of those things that, you know, hits those lists where it's like you didn't know it existed, but you should.
Yeah. See,
I think history is going to look back very favorably on this show.
That's a badge of honor, and I'm really proud of that I could even be some part of that. And yeah, I would love for it to mean that if I could find a home where I could really do some damage for, you know, a couple of years and do a show that was supported and consistently out, I would love to do it. I really appreciate you taking an interest in it. You've been a real champion, and if people become fans of my writing, it encourages me to do more, and it's a very hard and solitary thing to do. So it's nice to hear when someone goes, "Hey, I get it. I thought that was good," because there's really nothing more solitary than sitting and sort of giggling to yourself and writing alone, hoping that the rest of the world agrees with you.
You guys made the cult favorite of the big corporate IP.
Exactly. Yeah, we're making unknown to even ourselves, we're making cult little indie shows at Warner Brothers. You never know, but yeah, you know, maybe I'll find a home with like an Adult Swim type show, or something. Who knows?
Thank you so much, Tom. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, thanks for listening. Talk to you soon.
Keep in touch.
All right, you too.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Was that a great commentary, or was that not a great commentary? I consider myself so lucky to have had the contributors that I've had so far in Tom and John coming on and talking during their episodes, and they're so informative, they're so entertaining. I love listening to them, I love putting them together and editing them and putting them out there, and I hope you guys are also enjoying them. That's kind of the whole point of the enterprise. So, as I mentioned on the last full episode of APNSD, the interview with Tom, he's got a few projects out there you can check out if you're interested in Tom's writing and you want to see more. There's his young adult book from Epic Press called Survive Red Skies, which is an adventure novel on the high seas. There's also Trouble Is My Business, which is his full-length feature film. It's a noir, and Tom put that together over the last few years, if I'm not mistaken, and it's finally done. It's kind of making some festival rounds. I believe it just had its premiere. We are going to be able to see it. It's getting a release on April of 2018, so you can check out the website at troubleismy.biz. It's kind of self-explanatory. And if you want to see Tom on social media, give him a follow at Tom Konkle. Now, in a weird little twist, I want to plug something I've recently done that's kind of outside the APNSD basket of goods. I can't think of a good metaphor there. Last month, I believe it was posted at the beginning of October, I did one of Nick Robe's What's With You Scooby-Doo episodes. It's episode 53, and we talked about the What's New Scooby-Doo episodes Simple Plan and The Invisible Madman. You're probably familiar with Nick if you listen to any Scooby-Doo podcasts, but he's also been on my show several times now. He finally invited me to guest on his show, and we had a blast, and we talked about a whole bunch of different stuff, as is the way on Nick's show. It's sometimes more about the digressions than it is about the episode, but we always manage to bring it back to the episode, which is part of the fun. So if you want to hear more of me talking about Scooby-Doo, check out that episode if you haven't already. That's What's With You Scooby-Doo episode 53, Simple Plan, and The Invisible Madman. And beyond that, I'll just give you guys a heads up. The next episode coming up for the show will be an interview with the writer of the Scooby-Doo Essential Guide, Glenn Dakin. So be sure to come back in a couple weeks for that interview. I promise you won't be disappointed. If you have anything to say, or you want to find a podcast named Scooby-Doo on social media, we're on all the usual platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Scooby-Doo-cast, or a podcast named Scooby-Doo in the case of Instagram. There's a WordPress blog where I post reviews of Scooby-Doo comic books and some articles that are Scooby-Doo related. The show's on iHeartRadio and Stitcher, and if you download or stream the show off of iTunes, while you're there, do me a solid, rate and review the show. The more ratings and reviews that there are on iTunes, the more you show up on the Apple side of things, and you become more visible and accessible to people looking for your stuff. So like, share, follow, subscribe, and just thanks for all the support. Couldn't do this without you guys. I'm going to sign out here, but stay gold, stay cool, keep on doing the do. Take care.
The Nostril is running, you must go.